Next items are items 6H and I, and these are related to our public education grants, and this item will be presented by Sylvie Lee from one of our analysts in our public ed department.
Hello. Just really briefly before I start talking about the 2 staff reports you have from the public education program, I wanted to mention that you already heard about California Coastal Cleanup Day coming up. It's this Saturday, and I wanted to acknowledge, because we're here, that where we are, the Mendocino Land Trust is the county coordinator, and there are other organizations like the Noyo Center that you heard from serving as site captains, and we want to thank them for being our partners. They're organizing cleanups from Bowling Ball Beach to Westport, and there are cleanups right near here at Noyo Harbor Beach and Pudding Creek Beach, and quite a few other places too. So I encourage everyone in the area to check out the volunteer link on the Mendocino Land Trust website and click on Coastal Cleanup Day to find out where you can go. If anyone listening will be in another county tomorrow, you can visit coastalcleanupday.org, and there are literally 1,000 sites that you can pick from to go participate. Thank you. So the first staff report you have from the PE program is for this year's round of targeted Whaletail grants. As many of you know, the grants are made possible by revenues from the Whaletail specialty license plate. It's really beautiful. You should all consider getting one. And from volunteer donations to the Protect Our Coast and Oceans Fund that people make when they're filling out the state tax return. It's really easy. You should all consider doing it. There are 2 rounds of grants made every year. Today's grants are for our targeted funding cycle, and they're based on staff recommendations for high priority projects that are linked to the Commission's existing programs and goals. With these non-competitive grants, we fund organizations with the capacity and the experience to carry out local projects that are helping further the goals of the Coastal Commission. I expect to be back in February to present our recommendations for the other funding cycle, the competitive grants, when we get applications from many organizations and we select a portion of them to recommend for funding. All of the Whaletail grants, no matter which round they're being funded in, support projects that teach California's children and the general public to value and take action to improve the health of the state's marine and coastal environments. A key priority of these grants is to reach audiences that have been underserved in terms of marine education and provide them with opportunities to connect with the coast and ocean and participate in educational activities. Today, there are 7 projects being recommended for funding. The first is the Kids Adopt a Beach School Assembly and Beach Cleanup Program, which is divided into 7 different grants, serving approximately 8,000 children all around the state. Virtually all the participants in this program come from schools in underserved communities. The children learn about marine life, the ocean, and how to prevent ocean pollution, and then they are given the opportunity to go to the beach so they can enjoy and appreciate it and make a positive impact on the coastal environment. The second project is a training series put on by a nonprofit called Youth Outside. Last year, the Commission supported a training in Northern California and another training in Southern California to help our Whaletail grantees explore equity and inclusion in environmental education and how they can make the projects we're funding more culturally relevant for their participants. Those trainings got really good feedback, and some of the grantees were even asking for more. So this time, we'd like to fund 2 sets of trainings, one set like last time for the grantees that will be new in 2019, and a second set of regional trainings to invite back the folks who came the first time so they can have the chance to apply their newly developed understanding and delve deeper into the work of developing and revising their programming to make it more culturally relevant and inclusive. The third project is new for us. Last year, the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy received funding for a shuttle program bringing families from urban San Francisco neighborhoods out to the coast for guided activities. The staff thought the program would be a great model to use elsewhere, especially in Southern California, so we identified a good candidate to lead that effort, which is the nonprofit Community Nature Connection. They will work in disadvantaged communities in the LA area to run free coastal shuttle programs from public libraries to help new audiences learn about and explore coastal parks and beaches in their region. Next are Heal the Bay and I Love It Clean San Diego's Adopt a Beach programs. Adopt a Beach is one of the foundations of our public education program, and it's specifically mentioned in the Coastal Act. These 2 Adopt a Beach programs in particular are quite large, and they both include educational components in their programming. We're recommending funding for the Tide Center for supporting marine education programs in schools all throughout the state, including promoting a coastal science and civics curriculum for high school students, leading workshops for teachers, promoting schoolyard cleanups, and other coastal stewardship activities and lessons. And finally, as many of you know, we like to give funding for beaches to buy beach wheelchairs, which have large tires that can be pushed across the sand. Last year, the County of Santa Barbara used grant money for 4 new chairs, and one of our conditions was that they do publicity and outreach so people know they're available. So the county did such a good job that now quite a few people are asking for the chairs, but the beaches aren't always staffed. So now the county is requesting funds to buy steel lockers to store the chairs, and people will be able to check them out and learn the code to a combination lock so that you can use them even when the beaches aren't staffed. Besides those 7 projects, we're also requesting that the commissioners approve setting aside a $90,000 reserve. When staff identifies a need for that money later in this fiscal year, we'll return to you for approval. And if that doesn't happen, we'll add it to the competitive grants budget, which I mentioned will most likely come to you in February. Also, the staff is requesting that if any of these funds end up not being needed by the designated grantees, the extra money can be added to the reserve or the competitive grants budget to be allocated at a commission meeting later on. Finally, the staff is requesting that if any of these grants end up being slightly smaller than the grantees need, we have permission to allocate some of the reserve to give them a little more for their projects to be completed successfully, as long as the reserve funds are not otherwise needed. Thank you very much. The motion and resolution are at the top of page 2.
Okay, do I have any questions? Oh, do I have any ex parte? It's probably not. No. Do I have a motion? Okay.
Madam Chair, I move that the Commission approve the funding allocations set forth in the staff recommendations on this item.
Do I have a second? Second. Thank you. Would you care to talk to your motion? Okay, the makers of the motion are asking for a yes vote. Is there any, I'm sorry, I'm setting off Siri when I talk on the mic. Go away. She just keeps coming up.
She's
Okay,
everywhere.
Any objection to unanimous yes vote? Seeing no objection, the motion passes.
Thank you. And the second staff report is to ask for your approval for a few changes to the Whaletail grant guidelines. These would be printed in the application packet we're about to release to start the new competitive grant cycle that I mentioned would be awarded in February. Commissioners approved the original selection criteria when this grants program first started, so we also ask for your approval each time we want to make modifications. The first change would be to add a new subcategory for smaller, more grassroots organizations working with underserved communities that have an annual operating budget of $500,000 or less. We've had discussions over the past few years on how to level the playing field for applicants a bit because it's quite a competitive program, and this step would make the funding more available to smaller organizations, and it would build on other things we've started doing to try to be more accessible to groups with less staff capacity, like hosting webinars for less experienced applicants and notifying environmental justice groups of this funding opportunity. The second update would be to broaden the Adopt a Beach category so that now applicants could also use this category to apply for other types of shoreline cleanup and enhancement programs, even if they're not an official Adopt a Beach program, because we've been noticing that we don't usually receive a very large number of applicants in this category, so we'd like to widen the pool of potential grantees a little bit. And the rest of the modifications are really just small edits to clarify the language that's already there. Thank you, and this motion and resolution are on the bottom of page 1.
Commissioner Groom.
Thank you. I move the Commission authorize the modifications to the guidelines for the Whaletail Competitive Grants Program as described in the staff report dated August 28, 2018, item W6I.
Second.
I think this is a great idea. There's all kinds of wonderful organizations that don't have accomplished grants writers and the ability to get this stuff done, so I think this is going to be terrific.
Great.
Anybody else care to speak? Okay. The makers of the motion are asking for a yes vote. Any unwillingness for unanimous yes vote? Seeing none, the motion passes.
Thank you.